Hey guys, I'm back again with more information on the Spidercarts go-kart. A lot of people ask about the A-arms and the axles and these TL 1x2, 2x1 bushings and the jigs. So I've made a few things to help inspire you guys. My camera lady can come here and capture the jig. You want to come around here? And then, so we got this jig right here, and basically here's the newest version of it, but it fits right there, and you tack weld everything in place. So to give you an idea of what this might look like, there's other pieces to this, but it was all glued together. These welds would have to be filed down to make this look the way it was, but you complete the exact jig in 3D printed parts on both sides. So you have your jig set up and you do your tack welds. The one thing that I didn't like about this A-arm, and I don't think it's a jig's fault, I think it's just the way it's CAD modeled, is when, I'm going to pause right here real fast. Okay, so I got a piece of 5/8 inch all thread. So you jig it up, you weld it, you get to a point where you're attaching either the whole completed arm or this piece by itself. No matter how hard I try, once I get it all together and do the final weld, the distortion keeps this part stuck. It was a pain in the butt to fabricate this in such a way where these holes remain concentric, I think is the word, where the line is maintained. It wants to pinch and bind because of the shrinkage in the welds. But overall, the jigs worked well. So the jigs worked, and I 3D printed them, and I'll have links in the video for you guys to follow. This is a common question. What is this bushing? It's a piece of Dom tubing. Then instructions says 1x2 TL bushing. A lot of people don't know what that is. I've seen that question asked in different spots all over the internet. It's a piece of Dom tubing with a 5/8 inch inner diameter and a 1 inch outer diameter. I'll have a link. I got mine off eBay. It was the cheapest game in town, and it came pretty quick. And then I cut these to 2 inches here so you guys can see that. Here's the newest version, so it actually lays in there. Now, these A-arms, you need a jig to cut these. And this is another thing I didn't like about this design. And I think the part of the twisting problem really was because you have to cut these with a grinder. You don't get to use a saw. So let's take a look here. I would take this piece right here. I'd lay a piece of, and I would take my scribes and I'd cut my scribes right here. I had an interruption, but forgot where I left off. But basically, I'd cut a jig right here, a line right there, a line right there, and then grinder this out and stick this as my part. But because you're grinding, it's not going to be perfect. It's not like the saw where the saw comes straight down and cuts it. You're going to have some alignment issues that the welds, as they tighten up from the heating and cooling, will change these dimensions. So I didn't like it. And that's I'm going to leap into the next thing. If I was going to design these myself, and I'm still learning this process, but I would use, probably like a nut on this side instead, and use the same rod end, I believe it's called, or heim joint, and heim these where it doesn't matter. I'm still trying to understand why we wouldn't do that, but these instructions I think were made a long time ago. Well, that's what I would do for this A-arm, or have it where it comes out like this and then comes up, where you can cut both these angles with a saw. You'd be adding a second weld here, so you kind of be doing this kind of number, if that makes sense, guys, or maybe like that. So that brings me to my next part. I don't want to cut another 60-degree angle again. So here is the back rear motor mount, and as you guys can see, this is how it's going to weld up. So I actually have a second. If you look at the instructions, it's a 60-degree angle. It's one of these type cuts. I just didn't like cutting it that way, so I did some math with SolidWorks and came up with an alternative shape that I felt was suitable. And like I said, you're adding extra welds and extra cuts, but I think it looks cooler, and you don't have to have that sharp, straight up angle. That's the update. This I didn't get to talk about. So you want to be able to grab your, right, like you gotta make this joint. So what I did was I took this and I just took my grinder and my burr, and I just kind of chipped this out until it got, and then I would test fit periodically with a real piece until I got what I felt like was a suitable bite. Then after you have this, right, you got your cut, don't do this part, right? Don't do the flat part, don't do the other flat part. Don't change these, just cut here, cut here. Don't change this. These are really good for welding. Then you're going to stick it into your saw, and you're going to chop 2 inches from this datum. Right, guys? Is this making sense? So from this datum, 2 inches back should be approximately what you're going after. Maybe you can use this. I'm not explaining this as good as I would hope. So you'd have this in here. Actually, just use the real. Let's do it. Let's set it up the way it would really be set up. So we got this. This is an actual piece. I cut too many. Lost count of what I was doing. So let's put this in. This isn't even the right steel. This is not 14 gauge. So it's a little thick, a little bulgy. So I'd get it where it's fitted, right? So you get it set up with this. You have your over length, right? You have it set up right there, and now you're going to turn this around and scribe a line. I don't have a scribe right here, but you'd scribe a line right there, and that's your cutting point. So you can have these very clean touch-off points. This is MIG'd. The rest of this is TIG'd. Some of this is MIG'd, the rest of it's TIG'd. So I did some TIGGing to try and get it to look really good. And you guys can see what I ended up with. And one of these I started to TIG so that's all TIG welded. Yeah, with the jigs, 3D printed jigs, and I'll turn it around slowly, you can really get mass producing parts pretty quick. And then I have a video out where I clean this with muriatic acid so it looks really good. But like, subscribe. I'm going to talk more about the Granddaddy go-kart before I retire this project. And yeah, you know, after going through this, I would like to update certain things. Maybe not for the Granddaddy, but just update like open source A-arms or something, so other people can make parts with more modern technology like a carbide saw and get those. I like tight joints when I weld. Gaps tend to distort. You put a lot of heat, put a lot of metal to fill the gap, and then it wants to pull the part out of spec. So when you got a part where you're trying to, you know, thread the needle twice, so to speak, you can't have that much distortion. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. Take care.